Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And today, we're on to week 2 of fantasy football. We had Thursday night football last night. I know you may have started some guys there, but we're doing start 'em, sit 'em for week 2 of the NFL season. Let's get right into it. I've got 5 guys, start 'em, 4 for sit 'em. Let's get right into it. My first start 'em of the week, and that is Jonathan Taylor. This might be obvious to some of you guys, but I've gotten some questions about whether or not people should be starting Jonathan Taylor, and to me, he might be the start of the week. I think he's a must start for the rest of the year with Marlon Mack out with a torn Achilles. I think he's an RB1 from now until the end of the season. The amount of work he's going to be getting in that Indianapolis offense is ridiculous. We saw Phillip Rivers targeted running back 17 times last week. Yes, Nyheim Hines got the majority of those targets, 8, but Jonathan Taylor also got 6, which was very productive as well. And I project that Jonathan Taylor is going to be a lead back in Indianapolis. Yes, Nyheim Hines is going to take some carries and receptions away. But that's not a concern for me at all. There's still going to be many carries to go around, and a lot of them are going to go to Jonathan Taylor. So I expect Jonathan Taylor to have a big week this week against a Minnesota defense that was terrible last week against the Green Bay Packers. We're going to talk about some more Indianapolis players later as well because of that. 42 points allowed. Again, not good. Jonathan Taylor's going to get a bunch of goal line opportunities. He's going to get a lot of chances to get in the end zone. He is going to be given the ball a lot. We saw some success from Aaron Jones last week against this defense. I certainly think it's going to happen again with Jonathan Taylor here. I like Jonathan Taylor a lot this week. I don't think it's too much of a surprise for a lot of you guys, but if you're considering starting him or sitting him, definitely start Jonathan Taylor all day. And yeah, next, we're going to the wide receiver position here. We're talking about the Green Bay Packers wide receiver, Allen Lazard. And this one might surprise some people, but if you're in a 12, 14 or more team league and you got Allen Lazard, play him in the flex. I think it's a solid play. First of all, they're playing Detroit, and a good chance this week we see Detroit without its top 3 corners on the field. And this defense is just not good. We saw it last week. Mitch Trubisky put up 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and it's Mitch Trubisky. We've got Aaron Rodgers here this week off a blazing week against that Minnesota defense we just talked about. Lions defense, I don't think is any better, probably worse. So you got the same issue with the cornerbacks. Allen Lazard had 14 fantasy points. He had a good game. And one thing I'm looking at is last week, Allen Lazard played on 90% of the snaps for the Packers. I like that a lot. Yes, he didn't get the most targets, but he is out there on the field on 90% of the plays. He's going to get targets eventually. Just seemed like Adams could get open on every single play last week, and so he got a lot of the targets, but I think Allen Lazard is going to get them. Lazard played in the slot on 45% of snaps last week, which was very huge because guess who played in the slot last week for the Bears? Anthony Miller, 76 yards and a touchdown last week. He had a great fantasy performance. I think we could see it out of Allen Lazard this week. So I'm high on Allen Lazard this week because of those reasons. Again, 90% of the snaps he's playing, 45% of those snaps in the slot. This Detroit team is without its top 3 corners. You got Aaron Rodgers, who lit up a bad defense last week. He's going to do it again. I like Allen Lazard here a lot. So if you're in that 12-team league, 14-team league, and you're considering playing Allen Lazard in the flex, definitely do it. Next, we're going back to the Indianapolis Colts. We're going T.Y. Hilton / Paris Campbell. I'm going both of them here. And I love this matchup against the Vikings. We're ripping up the NFC North defenses here. They let up 42 points last week. And, T.Y. Hilton, he didn't have the best opening performance. It left a lot to be desired. He was targeted a team high 9 times in week 1. Only caught the ball 4 times, though. That 9 targets, though, was pretty promising to me. He had the highest target percentage among wide receivers, 15.3%. I'd keep him in the lineup. I like T.Y. Hilton this week. He's got the speed to burn downfield. We saw that happen with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and I think we're going to see a couple breakaway plays from T.Y. Hilton this week. So, I think we're going to get a couple deep plays. I think we're going to see those targets stay around the same 9, 10, and we're going to get some much more receptions this week for T.Y. Hilton. Not to mention Paris Campbell is going to have a good week. Last week we saw him with 6 receptions. I think he's going to have a lot of receptions this week as well. Again, this Vikings defense last week led up 42 points, 315 receiving yards, 22 catches, 81.5% completion percentage. And part of that was due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers was playing out of his head. But part of that was because the Vikings secondary is atrocious. And so these two guys, T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, they're the ones that I consider startable this week. I definitely staple T.Y. Hilton in your lineup. And Paris Campbell, I think, is a guy that you can definitely play in that wide receiver 3 spot / flex if you want to. I like both these guys this week against the Vikings. So yeah, start them. Next, we've got another wideout in the AFC, Marquise Brown. And, again, last week, Browns didn't put up any fight. Marquise Brown, it was a game script that did not favor Marquise Brown whatsoever. And he was still able to produce. He put up 101 yards, 5 receptions last week. I was impressed by his performance. He was getting open quite often. There were 15 targets among the Ravens receivers last week, which was very good. It was a big step up from last season, where we saw an average of 10.8 targets per game to the wideouts last year. A lot of them we know go to the tight ends, but there were 15 last week as opposed to 10 as an average over last year. And that could, I think, be the difference that Marquise Brown needs to jump up into that tier of better fantasy wideouts, because one concern was that they're not going to be throwing the ball enough, but we're getting 5 extra targets every game that can go to Marquise Brown, and I love that a lot. They probably are going to go to Marquise Brown. And, yes, the Texans did a good job slowing down Tyreek Hill, but that's just what, for some reason, Bradley Roby has done a very, very good job slowing down Tyreek Hill over the past couple seasons. He's still not, in my opinion, a very, very good corner. I like him a lot, though. But, last week, the Texans paid the price of that. They led up 2 top 24 receivers, Sammy Watkins, wide receiver 10, and, 2 touchdowns, 2 receivers. And this was with Patrick Mahomes only throwing for 211 yards with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It was a game script that favored Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And there were still 2 touchdowns, 4 receivers, and I'm guessing those receiving touchdowns are most likely going to go to Marquise Brown. So, again, I like Marquise Brown this week because I like the matchup. I think Bradley Roby is a favorable matchup for Marquise Brown. There was much more targeting wide receivers in that Ravens offense last week. So I like Marquise Brown this week. His ceiling to me is too high to ignore. I think, obviously his floor is a little bit low, and that's just how Marquise Brown is, but I can't ignore the ceiling. Definitely a great ceiling, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, flex. Start Marquise Brown this week. Next, we've got a running back, NFC, Raheem Mostert. Mostert last week, he comfortably led the 49ers backfield in touches. 19 touches, 151 total yards, a score. And Tevin Coleman, on the other hand, finished with 5 touches for 24 yards. Mostert got more touches. He was more efficient on those touches. Mostert is the clear number 1 guy for the San Francisco 49ers at the moment. I think he was undervalued at the start of the season. And if you got him on your roster, definitely play him this week. Mostert has RB1, RB2 appeal every single week. He's got a pretty good offense. To me, the Jets matchup is neutral. Some people might be concerned about the fact that the Jets have a decent to good run defense. I am not too concerned about that. I think it's neutral. Again, the Jets have a good run defense, but it's going to be a game script which favors Raheem Mostert. He's going to get the ball, especially in the second half. They're trying to run the clock off. I like the 49ers to win this game by a decent margin. I think they're going to be running the ball quite a bit in the second half, especially, even though the Jets' run defense is pretty solid. So, again, the Jets matchup is neutral, and we're looking at a guy that was very, very efficient on almost 20 touches last week. So I think Raheem Mostert is a must start this week in fantasy football. And then this guy isn't a stardom for me, just a note, and that's do not panic on Austin Ekeler. If you have him in your lineup, play him this week. Do not consider benching him. He was one of my guys that I really liked at the start of the year. Last week's performance was a little concerning, I will admit, but we're all forgetting about the fact that he had 19 carries. That's what we wanted to see from Ekeler this year. Yes, the receiving role was definitely diminished, but his rushing role was greatly improved from last year. There was 33 carries to go around in that backfield, and Ekeler is going to get the majority of those carries. He's the RB1 in the Chargers offense. And, yes, in PPR leagues, it hurts not to get those receptions, but this week in Kansas City, they're going to be down. The Chargers are 8.5-point underdogs. Last week, they were trying to maintain a lead. They were running the ball. This week, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more. I think those receptions are going to come for Austin Ekeler. He's going to be seeing the ball on the ground a lot more. Do not panic with Austin Ekeler. He is still a very solid option, RB1, RB2 every single week. So do not be too concerned with Austin Ekeler. We'll see this week, but I'm projecting he's going to bounce back. Have a good week. That was just a note. Now we're moving on to our sit-em guys, and our first one is DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. Last week, he had a good game. I said to start his teammate, Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf was almost on that stardom list as well. Now, he finds himself here on the sit-em list. Why? Because they're playing New England, who is not the best matchup. I don't want to be seeing my fantasy wide receivers playing against New England, especially when you're the guy that's going to be covered by Stephon Gilmore. So, obviously the connection between Metcalf, Wilson, it's growing and it's getting better, clearly. But last week, Falcons cornerbacks, it was a cakewalk. There was 38 points put up on the board by that Seahawks offense. It's not going to be that way this week. You're being shadowed by Stephon Gilmore, who did go out with an injury last week, but he will be here shadowing DK Metcalf is what I project. And I think this week for DK Metcalf to be successful, he's going to have to rely on a touchdown, a deep play touchdown, which I'm not seeing considering the fact that Stephon Gilmore last year allowed 1 touchdown on 104 targets in coverage, which is crazy. He's guarding wide receiver ones every single week. DK Metcalf is going to struggle. I'm staying away from him. I'm putting him on the bench if I can this week. Definitely sit DK Metcalf because that really tough matchup with Stephon Gilmore that I project is going to come to fruition. Next, we've got a running back here. We've got 2 running backs in a row. Malcolm Brown. And don't get me wrong, I like Malcolm Brown. I told you to pick him up off the waivers, but I'm not loving him this week. And, I think that running back job that he showed last week might be a little more secure than people think. You will see Cam Akers out on the field. He did have 14 carries last week versus Brown's 18. Brown was much more efficient on those carries, but I'm still not ignoring the fact that Akers is going to get quite a few carries, and that's part of the reason I'm concerned. But the main reason, Eagles, very tough matchup for any running back this year. Yes, Peyton Barber had a good fantasy week. He got in the end zone twice, but if you look past that a little bit, he had 1.7 yards per carry on 17 attempts. It was a struggle for Peyton Barber to get things going on the ground. He was completely reliant on those 2 touchdowns. I'm not betting on it for Malcolm Brown this week. It's going to be rough against that Eagles defense, which since the start of 2019 has allowed the 3rd fewest rush yards, 4th lowest yards per carry, and 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs in that period of time. And so we're looking at a very bad matchup, or a bad matchup, and a guy that we don't totally know the role of. He was the running back 1 last week, more efficient on the carries, but is he going to be that RB1 this week? We still saw Akers get 14 carries in that offense. So I'm staying away from Malcolm Brown this week. I would stash him on your bench. Do not drop him. We'll see his role after this week, but I'm staying away from him for now. Next, another running back, Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. And Philip Lindsay, yes, he was ruled out for the game on Sunday, but that does not help for me. And I think the reason that I'm saying to sit Melvin Gordon in this video is because the fact that Lindsay is out might lead some fantasy owners to believe, oh my gosh, I have to start Melvin Gordon. I don't love the play at all. I think he will stay in that 15, 16, 17 touch range, which we've seen him in. And This matchup against the Steelers is what I'm very, very concerned about. And we saw Saquon Barkley last week, who is the best running back, or top 3 running back in the NFL, no doubt in my mind, really struggle against this Steelers front 7. 15 carries for 6 yards. So even if we get 20 carries from Melvin Gordon, which I think is his ceiling for this week, how productive can he really be on those carries against this Steelers front 7 that looked unstoppable? So, I think for Gordon to excel this week, for him to actually do anything, he's really going to have to step up as a pass catcher. That's the only way that Barkley was able to get success, and that was as a pass catcher. And that's not what Melvin Gordon does at all. I'm not betting on that happening this week. So I'm sitting Melvin Gordon, despite the fact that Phillip Lindsay is out. So do not get caught up in the candy that Lindsay is out. Gordon is the lead back. He's not gonna see too much of an increase in his touches, and those touches are not going to be very valuable against the Steelers front 7. So sit Melvin Gordon this week. Next, final sit 'em. We've got Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans against the Baltimore Ravens this Sunday, and just don't do it. I'm not playing this game against Baltimore. I'm not a huge fan of Will Fuller. I'm not a big fan of Brandon Cooks at all. As you can tell, he's on this list. And for me, both these guys are completely touchdown reliant this week. Will Fuller, I'm a little higher on. He's not on this list because I think if there is a deep touchdown, it's most likely going to go to him. But Odell and Jarvis Landry only put up 80 combined yards, which is not good for such a great receiving duo. And this was in a game script against Baltimore where they were down the entire game. They were trying to work back into the game. Baker Mayfield was having to throw the ball, and they still only put up 80 yards. So this Ravens defense is scary, in my opinion. Cooks did nothing, almost nothing in that season opener. 2 passes, 20 yards in that loss to the Chiefs, in which, again, was a negative game script. They were trying to catch up to the Chiefs. I think it's going to be similar against the Ravens, who have even better of a secondary than the Chiefs do. And so, again, Cook limited to 31 snaps in that opener due to his quadriceps. So there's just way too much risk, in my opinion, with Brandon Cooks for me to start him. So the only way I could see him doing anything is if he got lucky on a deep touchdown. That's just not what I'm predicting, though. I'm not betting on it. Sit Brandon Cooks if you can this week. All right, so those were my stardom, sit-em. Again, stardom, Lazard, Jonathan Taylor, T.Y. Hilton / Paris Campbell, Marquise Brown, Raheem Mostert. And my sit-em, DK Metcalf, Malcolm Brown, Melvin Gordon, and Brandon Cooks. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. I'm so excited for week 2 of fantasy football and regular football. And yeah, peace.